That's where we'd like to welcome in former New York City police detective, first grade, and Newsmax insider Harry Houck. Harry, great to talk to you.
Hey, how you doing, buddy?
When, in your opinion, being a professional in the field, does a potential perpetrator cross the line from, what is exercising their First Amendment right to being a criminal? Because I think you have to look at countries like the UK, for example, which at this point are prosecuting people for their speech. If someone says something and I am offended by it, or it's interpreted as mean or somehow dangerous, that person can literally be arrested. And I can see how this could work out in America, and it scares me to death. After the Parkland shooting, one of my children, one of his best friends, had posted a picture of his gun collection on Instagram, not even being aware probably that the crime was paramount in people's minds and whatever. Anyway, he was brought in, this friend of my son's, who's a darling boy. He was investigated. This is an old gun. They're all antique guns that have been in his family for years. He's very proud of them. He meant no threat, but he was literally suspended from school and investigated by the police for posting his own old antique gun collection. I mean, these kinds of things are happening in America now. How do we know when is when? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly. First of all, we have to remember that in June of 2017, the Supreme Court has ruled unanimously, all right, that hate speech is protected by the First Amendment. So let's say it that way. Now, as far as threats are concerned, when I was on CNN as a narrator there, I used to get threats all the time. But once they cross the line, once they make a specific threat that they're going to harm you, that is the distinction. All right, so law enforcement can't go and get involved. Like the threat I had against me was that, I was going to be on the hit list for the Black Liberation Army, and that I should watch my back because I can be whacked any day. Well, we tracked this guy down. It turned out he was a white kid from Florida, just said something stupid on the internet. All right, so we never prosecuted the kid. But that instance you're talking about the gun is totally ridiculous. And I don't know why the police department investigated something like this. I could probably only assume is that politics got involved in that case, and that chief or the police commissioner in charge of that police department was basically told, either you investigate this crime or you're going to be out as police commissioner, as police chief. And that's probably what happened. I'd like to know what the final ending of that case was. And where it exactly went, because that family could sue the state or the city or that police department.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you look at some of these other cases, you look at the Parkland case, you look at this guy, Cesar Sayoc, not only are they posting inflammatory stuff onto social media, and we know there's a legal difference between inciting violence and maybe just kind of hinting at what you want to see happen.
Well, and the Parkland killer
posted
a lot of
Harry,
stuff.
when they have a long criminal record, as Cesar Sayoc does, and they're also posting this inflammatory stuff on social media, I mean, it's kind of like when your neighbors call the cops on you for playing your music too loud. I don't, can't police go knock on this guy's door and say, hey, look, we're just checking in on you to see how you're doing? That doesn't violate the First Amendment.
No, well, I think the police can go and knock on somebody's door when they see that he's got a violent criminal past. But the whole thing is, how are you going to find the threat on the internet? It's virtually impossible to find that information. We find out this information about this man, and after the fact. Who would have spotted this and made a police report and said, okay, this guy said he was going to do something? Yeah, you can go knock on the door and say, listen, do you have any plans about doing something? And if the guy wants to talk to you, he talks to you. If he wants to slam his door on your face, then he can do that too. Right.
Yeah, I have to say, I have reported people online that I've seen that look very dangerous and maybe a little bit off kilter, and I have had Facebook actually take them down. That has happened before, Twitter as well. Anyway, according to a report back in 2017, but you don't know if the police ever investigated them, so it's a very hard balance. Right. Back in 2017, British police forces arrested at least 9 people per day, though, for offensive online comments, and that was last year. According to the Times, more than 3,300 people were arrested in 2016 under part of their Communications Act, which makes it illegal to intentionally cause annoyance, inconvenience, or needless anxiety to another.
Arrest me,
I was thinking we could probably arrest each other then for causing annoyance. Should we have laws like that in this country?
Hey, isn't this what the Nazis did in World War II? This is exactly what the Nazis did. Anybody who spoke against them, they were arrested and put in jail. Okay, look at Tommy Robinson. I think Tommy Robinson, who was you know a spokesman in England against Islamic terrorism, he went to jail because all he did was film outside a trial that was going on for a bunch of Muslim rapists that raped children, and this guy went to jail. Let's be clear: England does not have, all right, freedom of speech.
Right.
I've gotten debates with friends of mine saying, "Oh, it's partial." There's no such thing as partial freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is absolute.
Yeah. Yep. And you see what else is happening in Europe. They recently ruled that it's not legal now to draw an image of Muhammad. Not that you should go doing that, but it's now enacted in law, basically, in the European courts, that you cannot draw an image of Muhammad because it's too offensive to Muslims.
Right, and that's arbitrary because you can see that many Muslims say some things about Christians and Jews in England, and they're not bothered at all. So this is purely arbitrary law.
Well, that happens in America. Pastor Farrakhan, is as anti-Semitic as they come, and yet we have former presidents sitting next to him and giving him credibility and legitimacy. And so what's the answer here?
Unless you're going to change the law, and I think Americans aren't going to want to change the right to free speech, this is probably going to go on from now to the end of time. There are a certain percentage of people out there that are haters, and all they want to do is spew hate, and there's nothing that we can do about it. And, I think the internet makes this a lot more pervasive. Any lunatic can get on there and say whatever they want. Remember, we only have a certain amount of people, let's say, I don't know, maybe 10% in this country that are going to act on some of these crazy statements that either side makes. There's no way to get around that. Just unless you want to do away with freedom of speech, which we're not going to do. And if something like that does happen in the United States, there could possibly be a revolution 15, 20 years down the road if that happens.
Harry, what advice do you have for folks that may see something on a social media feed that they think, look, this is inflammatory, maybe I need to tell someone? Where's the line between letting something go and actually saying, look, this looks serious and I need to take it to somebody and take it to an authority?
Well, you can take it to somebody, and if somebody finds out that, let's say I wrote something on the internet and it's not any kind of a threat against somebody, and then I have the police knocking on my door. Now I find out who that person was and sue them because they went ahead and they made a statement against me regarding how dangerous I am, and I'm not dangerous at all. So, I mean, there's a fine line here. You have to really be aware. Listen, I've had people come in to me, and when I worked in the detective squad, that wanted to report somebody, and they thought they committed a crime, and I said, listen, that person didn't commit a crime. I had a woman that said that this guy keeps on asking her out, and she says no, but he keeps on asking her, can he be arrested? I go, no, he can't be arrested. He's not harassing you. He's not doing anything, to harm you. Just tell him no. I mean, a lot of people out there believe that a lot of things are against the law, and they're not. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to get flooded with all these complaints in the police department you're not going to be able to handle.
Yeah, it really is complicated because you have on the one hand, situations like the Parkland shooting and like some of the incidents last week where you have a crazy person who is definitely saying horrible things on social media and it has even been visited, or in the case of the guy that sent the bombs, he's been arrested, I believe, 4 times in Broward County. Including once for a bomb scare. 1 time in Dade County on a bomb threat. So you'd think that the police would have been like watching him, and yet they weren't. And then you have, on the other hand, our friend, the child who posted a picture of his gun collection and ended up having his life put in upheaval over that, and traumatized by it quite extensively, by the way. So it really is a difficult balance, and we're going to have to come to grips with the difference between, I think, offending someone's feelings, John and I were talking about this on the break, and actually threatening bodily harm. And maybe that's where the delineation is.
And that's the difference, and we have to go with the threatening bodily harm part of it and be able to do something.
Well, we're all going to learn more about this because it's not going away, as you mentioned.
That's
Harry
exactly right.
Great to see you. Thanks for your insight.
Thanks for having me on.